And he says that politicians, civil servants, have to deal with two incommensurable values. On the one hand, they're idealists, hope to make a better tomorrow, looking to make a more just future, building a community that we can all love to be in a common moral human horizon. And in our tradition, in my tradition, the Jewish tradition, that is set down very clearly in our Torah with the golden rule, love your neighbor as yourself. But Weber was also quick to say that the world we live in is not the world that's over the moon or in the horizon. It's the world of the everyday, when we have to make hard decisions and face those ironclad realities of only a limited number of resources. And so rather there's an ethic of idealism, there's also an ethic of responsibility. And civil servants today have to deal with that responsibility by making tough choices. There's only so much money, and how much of it will go to education? How much of it will go to feed families who don't have enough food to eat? How much of it will go to put rails and roads down? How much of it will go to govern this beautiful city by the sea? These are the decisions that we have to make in the ethic of responsibility. When we come here tonight to have a community conversation, to have this forum, it's when our idealism meets our pragmatism. It's when the golden rule meets iron reality. And that's why we're here, is to come together and to have this conversation. And I want to welcome the candidates. I want to welcome Dr. Rafe Sunshine for being here. I want to welcome all of our coalition partners who we'll introduce in just a second for being here. I especially want to thank Brooke Werkschafter and Seamus. Where is Seamus? The tireless Seamus Curley worked so hard to put this together. And I want to thank my congregation, Valley Beth Shalom, for hosting this event. We host a lot of events. In a couple weeks, we're going to have a former ambassador to the United Nations come from the state of Israel in conversation with Rabbi Feinstein. So you can stay tuned for that. But this is what we care about as a congregation, is to step into the public sphere, have community conversations, and make life worth living. And so I just want to thank everyone for coming. And I'm going to turn it over to Dorothy, who's going to do our roll call.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good evening and welcome candidates and guests. I am Dorothy Edwards, and I am on the board of directors for Corporation for Supportive Housing. I'm getting nervous. I am also formerly homeless and a resident of supportive housing myself. Corporation for Supportive Housing is a national organization working to end homelessness across the country by ensuring that communities provide homes and support homeless men, women, and children need to improve their lives. We are a proud member of the coalition of organizations that organized tonight's forum. I'm going to read the names of all the organizations, and I ask you to hold your applause until the end, when I will ask all the members of these groups to stand and be recognized. Our coalition includes a Community of Friends, Church of Blessed Sacrament, Community Corporation of Santa Monica, Hollywood Community Housing Corporation, Home for Good, ECAR, Jewish Family Services, LA Family Housing, LA Health for All, LA Voice, Move LA, Pat Brown Institute for Public Affairs at Cal State LA, Southern California Association of Nonprofit Housing, Stephen S. Wise Temple, the United Way of Greater Los Angeles, and Valley Beth Shalom. If you are a member of any of these groups I just mentioned, we ask that you please stand and be recognized. Our coalition has come together because we know that the communities we live in and work in are healthier, stronger, and safer when all members of our community are supported in reaching their greatest potential. I would now like to introduce Dr. Yolanda Brown, pastor of the Church of the Blessed Sacrament in Hollywood, who will lead us in prayer.
So thank you, Dorothy. And good evening, dear brothers and sisters. It is a grace that God has gathered his children together here in this synagogue. And regardless of how we express our faith practices, we dignify one another. And we must remember that it is our Father and his Son, Jesus, who was born a Jew, that unites us in his love. So let us begin in prayer. And in my Roman Catholic faith practice, we bless ourselves as well as others. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Father, you remind us in Luke 12 that much will be required of the person entrusted with much, and still more will be demanded of the person entrusted with more. You raised up leaders of hope, honesty, integrity, and respect for human dignity. We pray that for Bobby Shriver and Sheila Kuehl, that they are also your prudent stewards. We pray that tonight, during this blessed dialogue, that your people will be graced to discern the leader of leaders who will guide and protect those you have entrusted. Bless us all in working together in building your kingdom, so all are bestowed with your abundance that you will entrust to this county supervisor. We are grateful that you will guide our new supervisor in your children's struggles to end homelessness, to provide affordable housing, safety and security, mental and all health care, to recover from food insecurity and re-entry to a fair and just society. Thank you for all the preparations and for those who prepared for this evening. Fill the polls with voters who are obligated to exercise this gift of freedom. In our Father's and his Son Jesus' name, let us say, amen.
Amen.
And now I would like to introduce Zachary Hoover, who is a Baptist minister and also executive director of LA Voice. Zach.
Thank you, Yolanda. And so first, I just want to say thank you so much to Valley Beth Shalom for this warm and powerful welcome, and to Rabbi Farkas for his leadership in this. I also want to thank the chair of the board, Nancy Sher-Cohen, and also just a special thanks to the Homelessness Task Force here at VBS that has been instrumental to making this happen tonight. So as Yolanda said, I'm the executive director of LA Voice, which is a multiracial, multi-faith organization working across Los Angeles County to create the kind of county that we believe will dignify all people. And the purpose of tonight, from my perspective, is to make friends. What do I mean by friends? There's a teaching that I want to use from this place's tradition by Maimonides in the Mishnah Avot, where he talks about 3 levels of friendship. The first level of friendship is, and I'll do my best with the Hebrew, lehaver, let's see, the first one, lehaver ledavar, friendship about a thing, kind of a quid pro quo or something we might trade, right? The second level of friendship is haver lidaga, friendship that's kind of an emotional connection where when you're sad, I feel your sadness. When I have joy, you feel my joy. And then the third and highest level of friendship that Rambam talks about is haver ledea. And this is a level of friendship that is about our shared vision for the world, our shared values, the things that make us angry because they feel like a violation of those things that we share in common around the world that we want to see, the world that we want to see. I believe that tonight there's an opportunity for us to make friends, both between organizations, between congregations, with the candidates for office. And it's about more than just a transaction of our vote. It's about more than just what we will feel when we hear powerful testimonies tonight and the connection that we have with each other around what we care about. I believe it's really about a step that we can take forward in this election to work together toward having more friends and therefore more power for the world that we want to have here in Los Angeles County. So we're going to talk about a lot of different issues. You've heard some of them already. We're going to talk about reentry. We're going to talk about homelessness. We're going to talk about 6 different issues tonight. And our hope is that we learn about those things. We learn about what our candidates' plans are to make a difference on those issues that are of importance to us, but ultimately that we have an opportunity to leave this place with more friends who want to journey together toward a Los Angeles that dignifies all human beings. I also want to just recognize that we have Assembly Member Matt DeBobne here. So I want to thank him for being here. Let's give him a round of applause. He just lives around the corner, and we were talking earlier, and he was talking about how this is very important to him to be in this space with us tonight. So with that, I am inviting up, or I am passing the mic to you, Dr. Sunshine. So it's all yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you. My name is Rafe Sonnenschein. I'm the Executive Director of the Pat Brown Institute at Cal State Los Angeles. That's, by the way, named after the current governor's father, not the current governor's grandfather, as a number of people often get confused. We're here to participate in something that violates all the conventional wisdom. We've all been told that nobody really is interested in democracy anymore. And if we're going to talk about a philosopher of Max Weber, and Max Weber and his works, the philosopher Woody Allen once said it best about democracy, that 90% of life is showing up. And that is what democracy is all about. And don't let anybody tell you that nobody shows up. You're here the night of the 7th game of a World Series. It'd be more of a conflict for me if the Yankees were in, but I don't really want to go there. If you think of who has shown up, we start with the 2 candidates who are now, we think, on their 25th debate of this campaign, maybe the somewhat 8th or 10th of the runoff election, the second time I've moderated with this group, and also participated in another debate with the candidates. And you just have to wonder if they're a little tired, but they both seem like they're full of energy. Who knows? Who can explain this? I'd also like to point out some other people who have shown up, which is the people who have worked on their campaigns. Would everybody who's working on their 2 campaigns please stand up right now? You will all be able to sleep on November 5th. Until then, you're working in the campaign, and that's all there is. People really have no understanding of how hard these people work in a political campaign. And all of you, you are here in violation of the conventional wisdom that people don't care and people don't show up. That's more important than the result of an election, because that's the heart of the election, that you're really part of this democracy. And as the previous speakers have said, this actually is about faith. That's sorely tested now, the belief that democracy can't work. I don't agree with that. I believe if you get enough people in a room like this and double it and triple it and quadruple it, there's no telling what the people of this country can do. So it's very exciting to all be here tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about the format of this debate and what the rules are. I've been told I get to make some of the rules, which I welcome. There's a few things I'd like to do that I'll get in here. It's an unusual format for those of you who didn't see this debate in the primary. The wonderful organizations that have put this together, each question has 3 parts. One person frames the issue, another person provides a personal testimony about the issue, and a third person asks the question of the candidates. Each candidate will get 90 seconds to answer those questions. And we flipped a coin. It was actually very exciting. And the Shriver camp, let's see, Bobby Shriver will be going first in the closing statement, and therefore also going first in the first one to answer a question. I believe I've got that correct. I would also ask the candidates' permission, since I've had a very unfortunate experience with having my last name pronounced throughout most of my life. Could we all just go by our first names tonight? Can you be Sheila?
You don't like being called Sunshine?
You have no idea. So Bobby, Rafe, and Sheila, is that okay?
Good with
okay,
me,
I'll
Rafe.
feel much better that way. I just think it creates a better tone and atmosphere anyway. We'll go through about, I believe, 7 of these questions, and then I've been asked to use the last 6 minutes to foster a conversation with the 2 candidates about the question of governance in LA County. which is my favorite issue, one I'm very concerned about. It won't be 90-second answers, but I want to keep you short so that we can sort of move through it. I want to get your thoughts on some questions I'm going to ask about whether maybe there should be some changes in the level of the county. Now, this may be dangerous, but I've been given a little bit of flexibility. One is that if I don't feel a question's being answered, I am entitled and empowered to say, Sheila or Bobby, can you answer the question? I don't want you to think I would enjoy that in any way, but if it's a responsibility that falls upon me, I will have to accept it. Obviously, I'm going to love doing that. In addition, and this is basically a fairness thing, I don't object if the candidates say something about the other candidate. We're 6 days out from an election, for God's sake. Only one of these folks is going to get elected supervisor. So there may be some things said. My rule of that is the other candidate gets a very short amount of time to respond. That's all. We don't get off into a whole different thing where we lose the questions, but we just take that opportunity to make sure that whoever says one thing, that it balances out. Everything should be in balance tonight. And I think that's all the rules. Have I missed any of the rules?
You said that.
90-second response. Oh, and Alex.
Where's the timekeeper?
He's right here. He's a big guy. And can you show us what you're going to show us for the timing? Oh, yeah, I guess we could read that. That says 30 seconds left. And then there's a red sign. Stop. We have decided that subtlety is not the way to go in tonight's rules, so we'll be just closing you right down. By the way, after that is what we refer to as the hook, but hopefully we will not have to use that. I believe we're ready. Candidates, are you okay with all these rules?
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Then I think it is time to begin with our first question.
Good evening. Is this on? Good evening. I'm Stephanie Klasky-Gamer, President and CEO of LA Family Housing, the San Fernando Valley's largest homeless and affordable housing provider. That's so nice, thank you. Recent studies show that 27% of LA County residents live in poverty, the highest rate of all California counties. More children are at risk of going hungry in Los Angeles than in any other county in our nation, according to a story in the LA Times back in 2013. Nearly 1.7 million people in LA don't always know if they'll be able to buy formula for their babies, fresh fruit or produce for lunch and dinner that day. Families find themselves buying cheaper and less nutritious food or cutting out entire meals just to make ends meet. At this time, I'd like to introduce Olga Perez, who will share her story about living with food insecurity.
Good evening. My name is Olga Perez, and I am a voter, and I live in LA County. I live in a community that's a food desert. My family and I have no access to fresh food or fresh vegetables or dairy products. I have to take 2 buses in order to get to the closest market. I can come back only with carrying 2 bags of groceries, which means that I have to be going 3 to 4 times back and forth to the market during the week to get the necessities that we need. I know a lot of people in my community have the same problem as I. They have no transportation. There's mothers, single mothers with lots of kids that have kids that can't be traveling. It's very difficult to be traveling on the bus back and forth. Also, we have the elderlies and handicapped people that have wheelchairs and they have walkers, and it makes it very difficult because they have to go through the same procedure that I do to have to get groceries on the table. I often have to go down to the small corner store in our neighborhood, to buy something simple like, say, a lettuce or some vegetable or maybe a gallon of orange juice. It makes me very sad and very depressed when I get home and I'm about to start dinner or add it to the dinner, and I have to cut off most of the product to throw it away because it's bad. It makes me feel sad because one time I opened the orange juice and it was green on the rim and green on the inside of the cap, so I had to dump out all the orange juice. I get so depressed sometimes that I feel like crying, but I make myself strong. Excuse me. I make myself strong because I don't want my family to think I let them down. But I know it's the lack of access that we have of fresh food and vegetables in our community, and then I have to struggle to go on the bus back and forth. So I know our communities and and other counties are facing the similar difficulties, because I've been to meetings where I have conversations with other people that live in other areas and they're facing the same food desert as us. So I really would like that maybe you could visit our community and experience the path that we have to take to put food on the table. So I ask you, please, I would appreciate it if you would join LA Voice and the coalition to bring fresh food and vegetables to our family and to our tables. Thank you.
I'm Nancy Volpert. I'm Director of Public Policy at Jewish Family Service of Los Angeles, the oldest social service agency in the county. CalFresh enrollment is a critical part of the county's role in addressing hunger, yet we have one of the lowest SNAP, CalFresh, food stamps, they're all the same thing, whatever you want to call it. Oh, thank you. We have the lowest participation rates in the country. How do you plan to increase participation and reduce hunger in our community? Will you direct LA County lobbyists in DC and Sacramento to prioritize restoration of SNAP funding? Will you prioritize the removal of barriers to safety net benefits? And finally, what will you do to encourage the Department of Public Social Services to improve enrollment in LA County?
First answer is to Bobby.
Thank you for that question. I just want to say, I don't know what everybody else felt, but the idea that you don't want to let your family down is such a profound idea. And listening to her say that, made me feel very emotional, and is an important part of the reason I ran. I just feel that our country, and certainly this wealthy area, has to be able to do better than that. The idea that she's riding the bus to get food that is not good is just deeply outrageous. It's offensive, and I will do whatever is necessary to make that right. I know in Santa Monica, where I worked on the city council, we did a lot of work to try to maintain neighborhood markets. A lot of times they get taken out by development, and to give them a priority in zoning is an important task of local government that should be coordinated on a regional basis. But I absolutely would prioritize that with the lobbyists, both in Sacramento and DC. I think this is a critical issue. My sister Maria has done a report, which I hope some of you have seen, called the Shriver report on these exact issues. They affect women in a wildly disproportionate way. It's very unfair, and I'm determined to do something serious about it and to prioritize it.
Sheila?
Well, it's a very complicated issue, and I have several plans about it if I'm elected. I want there will be a person in my office specifically devoted to food policy, because it's an aspect of health. It's a part of the health department, and it's also a part of, in its own way, as we just saw, mental health, as well as public health and growth. There are many things that communities have done and some things that governments have done. Here are several of them that I would want to implement in the county. On the individual level, there are a number of communities that have tried to bring farmers markets, especially people growing small crops on their own, to the clinics, to other places where they might be more available to people living in the neighborhoods. Community gardens have also been a part of how we've tried to teach people from childhood to be able to grow some of their own food. And also school gardens, teaching children how things come out of the ground, what food is. That's only the beginning. We need to lobby in Sacramento and in Washington, and I believe that that's an area that I have some experience in, to get them to restore the funding so that there will be more government money in providing not just food stamps, but also the special programs that have been discontinued. And finally, I think that there is also an issue that the county can engage in terms of making certain that there are incentives for small markets to locate closer in the community.
Since we have a few seconds left, I'm going to ask you each a quick follow-up question. The question suggests that DPSS is not prioritizing this enough. So how would you as supervisor find out if it's correct that they're not giving enough attention to this and then take action to actually change the work of a county department? Let's go in reverse order, just a few seconds each. Sheila?
Well, it's the job of a supervisor to know what's going on, and that's why you have a special deputy for each of these areas. How you find out what they are or are not doing is only the beginning. One of the problems, I believe, at DPSS, and it was the same with the state social services agency, is that there are so many doorways that you have to go through to find different kinds of services. And that, I think, has to be consolidated, and that's how you get information about food security at the same time as you're finding out about other kinds of benefits. I also wanted to say that I think the county can do more in terms of funding nonprofits who are helping people to find food, to access food, to even bring food to them.
Okay, Bobby, your take on that?
I would say that the...
Please, I forgot one other rule, which is please no applause or demonstrations or cheering or yelling about any answers. Go ahead, Bobby.
So following up on Sheila's thought there, the activist or the nonprofit community, which I came out of, my parents were both activists, I think that's the best way to find information. I started when I got out of college as a reporter, so I like to go get the information myself. I would work with the kinds of groups that are represented here and hear from them. That's your best source of information. I think it's very important when you do get elected that you're somewhat distant from the street, that you really make a strong effort to stay in touch, not just via your deputy, but via yourself, coming to communities, knowing leaders, knowing activists who are working on these kinds of issues, meeting with this woman, has your life gotten better in a year? What does she think the county should be doing better? Listening to her and getting information that way. That's my perspective on how to get that information.
Thank you. Let's go to the next. You can always applaud the questioners. That would be okay.
Hi, my name is Michelle Yousefzadeh. I'm a member of Stephen S. Weiss Temple and a volunteer at the Venice Family Clinic. Thank you both for joining us tonight. Over the last year, LA Voice and its coalition partners have had great success facilitating enrollment of hard-to-reach populations into Medi-Cal or covered California. However, over 400,000 Angelenos are still left without any source of health care, primarily undocumented immigrants. The launch of the new My Health LA program itself has been plagued by delays, dissension among community clinics, unfulfilled promises, and a host of obstacles that can be traced to a lack of political will and inadequate funding. Tonight, we have Cristina Cortez, who's here to share her story.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Cristina Cortés, soy residente del Distrito 3, vivo por más de 20 años aquí en Hollywood. Soy madre de 2 hijos que viven conmigo aquí en los Estados Unidos de América. Por los últimos años he trabajado temporalmente como mesera por llamada con la empresa Marriott Internacional. Actualmente estoy desempleada y soy madre soltera de muy bajos recursos. He tenido problemas de salud por mucho tiempo que últimamente estoy sufriendo también de una condición muy crítica con mi vesícula, pero no me atendía por carecer de un seguro médico. He tenido que pagar las consultas mías y de mis hijos. No he tenido dinero para pagar las medicinas que el doctor me regalaba de las muestras médicas que él tenía en su consultorio. La falta de seguro de salud es muy común en mi comunidad. Hay más de 400,000 familias que viven indocumentadas y no tienen un seguro de salud aquí en el condado de Los Ángeles. El cuidado de salud preventivo es muy importante y debido a esta situación, todas estas familias están sufriendo. A pesar de todas las dificultades que yo he tenido en mi vida, mi hijo Diego, de 26 años, está haciendo su maestría de planeador urbano en UCLA y mi hijo Emanuel está en su último año como asociado de las artes en Los Ángeles City College. Y esta es mi historia y espero que tengamos pronto un seguro de salud para todos.
Okay, I'm going to translate what she said, what Mrs. Cristina said in Spanish. Good evening, my name is Cristina Cortez. I'm a resident of District 3, an area in Hollywood where I have lived for the past 20 years. I am a mother of 5 children. 2 of my children live with me here in the United States. I work as a temporary waitress on call for the Marriott International Hotels, and I have worked there for the past 8 years. I'm actually unemployed. I'm a single parent, a low-income single parent, and for a long time I have suffered pain in my ribs, and I also have asthma, and I have a critical condition in my gallbladder, but I was not able to take care of this because I didn't have medical insurance. I have had to pay for my medical visits for mine and the visits to the doctor for my children. I don't have money to pay for the medication, so the medication I take is the samples that the doctors give me because I don't have money to buy my own medications. Even though I have had many difficulties, my son Diego, he's 26 years old and he is getting his master's degree as in urban planning in UCLA. My other son, Emanuel, is in his last year of at Los Angeles City College, and he's getting his AA degree. Both of my children are very healthy and they're very dedicated to school. They like to play sports. They love to play basketball. I would like to tell you that that my experience is very common in my community. This is very common for low-income residents in my community. There are more than 4,000 individuals, undocumented individuals who live in the county of Los Angeles who do not have access to health care and do not have access to preventive services. They are suffering. Thank you.
Bobby. At the first forum, you pledged support of an increase of $100 million to better fund the My Health LA system and the providers within the system. Sheila, you have worked towards universal health care on the state level and expressed your commitment to ensure that all Angelenos have access to affordable health care. Tonight, we ask you to describe, 1, how you will work with other supervisors to secure increased funding for the My Health LA program, and 2, how you will ensure that the Department of Health Services will use these funds effectively to create California's most accessible and affordable healthcare safety net for the uninsured.
So first question goes to Sheila.
Well, I think it's a question about what have you done to do those things. I had 170 bills signed into law by 3 different governors, and that requires getting other people to vote with you, including on the budget or on health care. I chaired the Health and Human Services Committee, and I think that these supervisors have already demonstrated some interest in health care. The clinic system is one of the most important systems in the county. It provides health care, basic health care, for over 1 million people in Los Angeles County. And that is really what the county does. The county carries out state and federal health programs and tries to make certain that they work. So I know that Hilda, I know that Mark, and I wouldn't count out Don and Mike either in terms of increasing funding for health care for people in the county. The state also provides the opportunity to provide health care coverage for the undocumented, which the federal government will not do, as I'm sure many of you know. And it is the counties that are called on to carry it out. I'm very familiar with funding for health care, having served on the budget sub on Health and Human Services and chaired the policy committee, and I look forward to making this money work in the county. The last thing you asked was accountability. How do you keep a department accountable? And that has to do with whether or not you know what you're doing already. That is, do you know about the health law? Do you know how the answers you're getting may be right or not right? I believe I have that experience.
Bobby?
I think this is the most important question facing the county, is how to make the new healthcare system work. Because whatever it was 10 years ago has completely changed with Obamacare. There's a competitive system in place now. The county health facilities are subject to that competition like every other healthcare facility. Dr. Katz, we're lucky in the county because the person running it is a very smart person. He's been able, for example, to take some of the money that was being spent on homeless individuals staying overnight in hospitals for many days and deploy that to building housing, supported housing for people. That kind of innovation and creativity will be the key to making the money work harder. I know in the Healthy LA, the Tarzana Clinic, which is in the neighborhood out here, didn't get approved by the federal government. That's a significant question for this part of the valley. We need to get, and Zev made a big point of it when the program was approved. I happened to be at the county meeting that day, to make sure that that clinic continues to be able to serve the low-income people that it has served so well. People now have to take 3 buses to get to the closest clinic who were using that. Whoever the new supervisor is has to keep a weather eye to make sure that happens. And finally, I would say that both 2 of the supervisors who Sheila mentioned have endorsed me. I'm looking forward to working with them. And I think I've had a record of bipartisan work, of getting things done in the healthcare, the international healthcare world, where I worked on HIV/AIDS with the Republican administration, and I got some stuff done there that many people thought was impossible.
Okay, next question.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Letts. I'm the Executive Director of Community Corporation of Santa Monica. I'm like one of many nonprofits here. We own and manage affordable rental housing in LA. LA County is getting a lot of press lately because it's one of the least affordable counties in the entire nation, and the LA Times recently dubbed it the nation's overcrowding epicenter. The housing crisis forces families to make very difficult choices. I'd like to introduce one of those families, Isauro Gutierrez and her son Francisco. They struggled for many years, and now they're fortunate to live in affordable housing, and I'm pleased to introduce Francisco.
Hi, my name is Francisco Gutierrez, and this is my mother, Isaura. My sister and I were born and raised in Santa Monica. My family has lived there for 20 years. After my parents separated, my mom tried for 5 years to get an affordable apartment with Community Corporation of Santa Monica. She considered leaving Santa Monica, but didn't want to take my sister and me out of the good schools. My mom was working as a preschool assistant at the time, and we could only afford to sublet 1 room in a 2-bedroom apartment occupied by another family. It was difficult for the 3 of us to live in 1 room and share a bathroom and a kitchen with others. We studied on our beds, and we were always concerned that if we annoyed the other family, they would ask us to leave. Fortunately, my mother was qualified to be the resident manager for an affordable housing building. That is how, after 5 years of waiting, we were able to move into a brand new apartment in the Pico neighborhood that we could afford. Now my mother works as both a resident manager and a school crossing guard. She also attends college part-time because she wants to be an intervention assistant for preschools. I'm very proud of my mother for all she has done to take care of my sister and me and to support our goals of getting a good education. I'm also proud of my sister, who now attends UCLA, a school that I plan to apply to soon.
Well, I just want to say the last word and say that I'm really thankful to CCSM
for the opportunity they gave us with an affordable house to live in. And I hope that you can continue building more houses for good families in the community.
There are tens of thousands of families in LA County who live in overcrowded conditions. Yet funding for affordable housing has been cut by nearly 80% since 2007. The largest cut, to about $250 million, came from the elimination of redevelopment agencies. And LA County now receives much of that additional revenue, about $200 million per year, in funds that previously went to these local agencies. As supervisor, are you willing to commit funds to fill the $250 million gap left by the elimination of redevelopment agencies? And if so, what would be the sources of funds?
Bobby, that's you. And could I ask both of you to be as specific as you possibly can about these funds that are coming back in terms of your use of those funds?
Thank you. Yes, I commit 100% of them. I'm very happy to see Sarah here. One of the disagreements Sheila and I have in this race is whether state experience is better than local experience. I say that local experience is very useful because I view the county in many ways as a local agency. This agency that built this housing is an agency that I supervised on the Santa Monica City Council. Decisions about money to build that housing were made by the Santa Monica City Council. The homes that those people live in were financed by the general fund revenue of the city of Santa Monica with redevelopment funding, as Sarah mentioned. This has stopped now because the state, Sacramento, took the redevelopment money to balance the state budget, which is out of balance. The money should be returned to the cities who were doing a good job. Some cities were doing bad things, funky things, making crazy development deals. But good cities were doing this. Santa Monica is a well-run city. This agency, the Community Corporation of Santa Monica, is a Santa Monica City agency, has a local leadership, has built this housing, and during the Great Recession, we continued to build that housing. People live in it because government did that. We should do that on a county-wide basis. The county should cooperate with all the cities who have their own boomerang money coming back to them. We should develop innovative financing plans for building that kind of housing so people can have these stories of going to good schools, applying to UCLA, graduating from UCLA, and making a positive contribution to the community. It's just so exciting to hear your story for me. I just love it. Thank you all for coming out.
Sheila?
Seems like you missed the part about how they had to wait 5 years to find a place to live. It's easy when you live in a fairly rich city like Santa Monica, which I also do. Although the rents are out of sight. I mean, most people can't afford to live in Santa Monica anymore, whether you have developments or not. The question of what a county does, a county with 88 cities in it, not all of whom have that kind of money, not all of which have been able to use their redevelopment money correctly. Now those boomerang funds are coming to the county. There can be a much more unified approach to the ways in which we do affordable housing. I have already committed to use a great portion of the funds coming back. Not all of that redevelopment money is coming to the county. Much of it is still going to the cities. That is the percentage that they already get, generally, from property tax. The question is, can you bring all those cities to want to do affordable housing? Can you bring those cities to want to do rental housing? And I think the answer is yes, and it's because of having the much larger experience of working with the notion of affordable housing, not just in a city, but with the policy for the whole state. That's really what it takes. This county, if it were a state, would be the 8th largest state. This is not a city of 88,000 people. This is a county of 10 million people. You need to have experience with something of the scale that is needed for affordable housing in this county.
I have to clarify from both of you. The money that's coming back that formerly would have been used for redevelopment, are you both saying that there are no other purposes beyond affordable housing that you would favor using any of that money for? Could you both clarify that for me?
I think the bulk of it should be used for affordable housing. I think that there are questions of other needs. I mean, we're having 6 different questions asked of us tonight, right? The question of what a county does with its money, it's easy to say, but not all the redevelopment money went for housing either. That was part of the problem. It was buying parking lots. It was paying to, put in sort of fancy fields. That's part of why Governor Brown wanted to consolidate that money and give it to only 58 counties, the way your other tax money does.
Okay, Bobby?
Well, I favor using it 100%, Rafe, and I appreciate the clarification because I think these kinds of stories is what you're investing in. The experience of actually building this housing is a local experience. It's not somewhere up in Sacramento. This housing was built with the general funds of the city of Santa Monica and the redevelopment funding. And there are plenty of cities in the 88 cities in the county who have enough money to build affordable housing and who have done so, by the way, who have done so, not as aggressively as Santa Monica, but still have done so. And I want to work with them. We have the crisis that Sheila mentioned. Rents are out of sight not only in Santa Monica, but I'm sure everybody here knows all over the county. We have to have a program of producing affordable housing on a countywide basis, on an urgent basis. It creates jobs, it creates opportunities for people to go to UCLA, it keeps families together. It's an absolutely essential thing.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Hi, my name is Sean Huff from LA Voice, excuse me, and City of Refuge with Bishop Noel Jones. I also work at Shields for Families. We at LA Voice are serious about ending our county's failure to help people coming home. Serious enough that we have, in the last 6 weeks as of tonight, had 19,998 conversations with low propensity voters of color across the county, and we have identified 14,007 yes on Prop 47 supporters. And we know that there's much work ahead, even if we win next week. Community and faith-based organizations like Shields for Families and Homeboy Industries, and many of our congregations provide a broad range of critical services that support individuals as they transition from incarceration to living independently in the community. In addition to substance abuse and mental health services, these organizations offer shelter, clothing, mentoring, family counseling, and independent living programs. Community and faith-based organizations often operate as part of informal networks that together provide an individual with a continuum of care. Unfortunately, LA County has failed to adequately invest in partnerships with community and faith-based organizations that provide reentry services. We have $1.8 million from the state thanks to AB 1468, but we need to go above and beyond to serve our people. At this time, I would like to introduce Damon Johnson to share his story.
Hello, everyone. My name is Damon Johnson. I'm from Homeboy Industries, also a member of LA Voices. Growing up, I was the victim of child abuse, verbally, physically, and emotionally. I grew up in a dysfunctional household where I had my ears pulled and separated until they bled. I was also being whipped with a belt, a switch, a telephone cord at least 5 times daily. I was so hurt and in so much pain, I took out on the world the pain I endured at home. Every chance I got, I hurt someone, every chance I had. I got involved in the gang life. I went to prison for 2 years. When I was coming out, I knew that I wasn't going to go back. I saw some younger men that I knew on their way in, and as I was coming out, they proudly said, "We follow you." At that moment, I made a choice that I wanted to turn my life around, and coming home is hard. And thank God, I was able to get in touch with an integrated program of reentry at Homeboy Industries. Many people I knew were not so lucky, and they went back to prison. My second chance allowed me to begin seeing a therapist and digging down to the core of my inner self and dealing with the issues that I've dealt with for so long, and learning how to re-enter the community with positive goals and dreams. The support structure allowed me to become a GED coordinator / tutor and mentor and youth mentor, a case manager at Project 180, and a mentor at several boxing gyms throughout the LA, Los Angeles area. But last but not least, I'm finishing up my final semester at LA Trade Technical College in order to, then I'll be working towards my master's in physical therapy. I would not have been able to do this on my own. I want everyone who has made the choices that I've made to get the chance to turn their lives around as well. And also have the opportunity to be successful outside, not going back inside. I want a county where there is possible change for everyone. Thank you.
So our questions are, what can we count on you to do to increase access to reentry services in local neighborhoods and integrate community and faith-based organizations in the county's reentry services system? Many of our partners have called for spending at least 50% of AB 109 funds on community-based reentry support. And secondly, will you partner with us, including going to Sacramento leaders, to push for the laws and resources we need to drop our shameful recidivism rate?
Sheila, I think you're up first.
It's really interesting to me how many questions we get about how we will communicate with Sacramento to get resources here, because that actually is a very important connection. The other thing that occurred to me when you were both talking is really how important one person can be, how Father Gregory sort of had a vision, and how we stand on his shoulders and other people will stand on our shoulders. And that's really what you were talking about, and that's been the story of my life as well. I am committed to expanding the, not only the funding, but the support we give to local community organizations and to faith-based community organizations, especially about reentry. This is one of the highest sources of homelessness. People don't know. People come out of jail, you have nowhere to go, and if no one's helping you get a job and really straighten out your life, you're going to be homeless. It's the same with our young people coming out of these juvenile camps. Many, many of our young people are just on the street again. So I commit that if I am elected, and frankly, even if I'm not, I will continue working with the people that I've worked with in the nonprofit community on many of these issues. It's a very important thing to make sure that people get access to jobs, get access to counseling, as you indicated, and really the connections that allow them to turn their lives around and really make something of themselves. I'm even more interested in those who did not get into trade tech. I'm more interested in those who we really have to help, and I commit to doing that.
Bobby?
I'm just so excited every time I hear Father Boyle's stories. I think innovation in nonprofits, I hope many of you know my mom started the Special Olympics, which was just a dream that she did for social justice for her sister, and look what it became. Amazing, right? Father Boyle started Homeboy Industries, and look at this young man. He's going to get a master's in physical therapy. He's not in the jail system. He's paying taxes. He's a member of the community. It's an unbelievable social achievement that Father Boyle has brought to us. Really unbelievable. It's very, very important to understand that that the outcomes for a person like this are so great, and they're so much cheaper than keeping people in jail. The current project in the jail revitalization, I'm sure many of you know, is going to build a new jail and keep people in jail who are mentally ill and have other co-occurring disorders. This is a terrible mistake. Those people should be put in community mental health care centers, not put in the jail downtown. There should be reentry programs, or as they call it, discharge planning. You can't put, as Sheila correctly says, young people or middle-aged people on the street who have been in jail for several years or more. It's just not possible. And yet that's the policy of the county now. People are trying to do a good job and change it, but we do need, I think, a person or persons to come into the county leadership positions and say, we got to do this right now. We got to partner with the faith-based people. They have great ideas. They're willing to work hard. Thank you. Sorry. Gotta get riled up there.
My name's Christine March, and I'm the Director of Home for Good at United Way of Greater Los Angeles. Nearly 40,000 people are homeless in our county, including over 4,600 veterans and over 9,000 chronically homeless people. Homelessness is not only inhumane, but we know that we spend more on emergency room care, hospitals, and jails, all county resources, than it costs us to provide permanent homes and the supportive services that people need to thrive. The county has been a partner in Home for Good, our region's initiative to end chronic and veteran homelessness by 2016, by beginning to align health and mental health resources towards those permanent solutions. but we will have to be even more strategic, targeted, and collaborative if we're to reach these ambitious goals by 2016. I'd now like to introduce Keith Gren to provide perspective on the importance of this issue. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Keith Gren. I spent 14 years in the United States Army. I was an Army Airborne Infantryman, Sergeant First Class. I saw combat 3 times. I was awarded the Purple Heart twice. I had such assignments as the Old Guard, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, Arlington National Cemetery, and my last assignment was 4 years as a drill instructor. I left the military after 14 years because my primary diagnosis is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. I'm 100% disabled, and I had a family. I lost my family, my house, my job, everything. I started walking the streets. And what happened is I became homeless. I went to certain agencies, and what I found is I found a system out here that was so big and so huge that I could not navigate this by myself. When my country called upon me to go stand in harm's way and defend what we stand for, I did not hesitate, not 1 minute. Within 24 hours, we were on a bird, we were on a plane, and I was out taking care of what I had to take care of. But the question I asked myself, how come when I got back, it took my government 2 years, they hesitated before they gave me affordable housing, basic needs. But then I thought to myself, I had this thought when I was homeless on the streets. I said, you know, the only way I'm going to enter this system and negotiate these 6, half-dozen, dozen different departments just to get my basic needs is come in with an A game. With my mental health status, I was lucky to be coming in with a C or a D game. Thank you.
My name is Sophie Alpert. I'm a member of Valley Beth Shalom's Homelessness Task Force. I'm also the founder of Piece by Piece at Skid Row Housing Trust, which serves the homeless and most vulnerable residents of Los Angeles. Thank you, Mr. Grand, for sharing your amazing story. You have both previously committed to actively address the issue of homelessness and have supported creating more permanent supportive housing throughout the region. What are the top 2 or 3 specific changes you would propose to strategically direct county funding for permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless people and homeless veterans, and how would you implement these changes?
I think, Bobby, the next first question is to you here.
Excuse me. As I hope you know, I've worked on this for 10 years. I've organized a lawsuit against the Veterans Administration for their failure to build permanent supportive housing for people and therapeutic supportive housing for people suffering from PTSD on the West LA Veterans Campus, which is the biggest VA facility in the United States of America. And they have built no new housing there except in response to the lawsuit in 30 years, including no new housing for women veterans there. Excuse me. I'm very sorry to report that it took a lawsuit to get that going. It's unconscionable. I think the county ought to hire a lobbyist. Congresswoman Janice Hahn and Congressman Cardenas, who are both working on this issue and are both supporting me, mentioned to me, both of them separately, that they've never been lobbied by a county lobbyist on a veterans issue. They're lobbied on transportation, the other issues that the county deals with, healthcare, but the county does not have a person that they hire to lobby on veterans issues. The way Washington works, you know, you need a lobbyist to get stuff done. You can go there yourself and so forth, but you really need someone who's paying attention on an ongoing basis. Excuse me, working with members of the California delegation and the Los Angeles delegation to get increased federal funding into the system and to unlock the funding that already exists. Many of the VA facilities and mental health people are terrific, but vets don't go into those systems, as I'm sure Keith would say. We have to make a much better partnership, not only with nonprofits like yourselves, but with the VA so that they see how to roll these services out on a regional basis. We can't continue to have the largest homeless veteran population in America on any ongoing basis. It's unacceptable. I know Mayor Garcetti has announced a plan with Mrs. Obama to get it, and I'm going to work closely with them on that.
Sheila?
Well, I think what it's shown us really is that we can't really count on the VA to be doing the veteran services that need to be done in LA County. It takes 10 years and the housing's still not built, and yet nonprofits in the county built at least 1,000 supportive permanent units in the same time for veterans. I think the important thing, a couple of things. I believe the county has to have a very well-functioning and accountable Department of Veterans Services, specifically devoted to all of the issues that our veterans are facing, to pull together mental health, to pull together housing, to pull together health issues. Really a one-stop shop for veterans, for county services, one that's highly functioning and highly accountable. Second thing is we have to upscale the kinds of things that have started in terms of permanent supportive housing. My answer to everything is take those pilots and make them bigger, because many of them are very successful. Instead of just doing shelter and putting people back on the streets, including our veterans, but not only them, the people we were talking about just coming out of jail, young people, other homeless populations, we need more and more permanent, supportive housing. For the chronically homeless, we need very strong services. For the veterans, we also need very strong and centralized services. For some people who have simply lost their housing because they lost their jobs, they may not need all those services. We need rapid rehousing, and that can happen in a lot of different places in the county. I commit to this work as I've just described it.
Okay, next question.
Good evening. My name is Mark Kuehl. I'm the Criminal Justice Chair of the NAMI Los Angeles County Council. We're the association of the 12 affiliates of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I'd just like to say, if you or someone you love is struggling with a mental health crisis, please seek treatment, and please seek us. In the 3rd District, it would probably be NAMI San Fernando Valley or NAMI Westside Los Angeles. We can help. For years, we've underfunded our mental health system, in particular, the crisis resources and inpatient beds for our people who are most ill, and this has led to predictable results. In addition to the unacceptable numbers of persons with serious mental illness swelling the ranks of our homeless population, as we all know, the percentage of justice-involved individuals with serious mental health conditions continues to rise, and this population is simply backing up in our emergency rooms, in our jails, in our prisons, and our state hospitals. And if you talk to their moms and dads, as I do, there is tremendous catastrophe and travesty going on in our state. As we speak, there's 3,500 men and women with serious mental illness in our county's correctional system. Many of these people are relatives of NAMI members. So to our mental health community, this isn't just a policy debate, this is personal. They are our kids, our spouses, our siblings and friends who happen to have a very serious medical problem called mental illness. I'm the father of a son with a serious mental illness. Jail is the absolute worst place for them to be. Achieving recovery in a jail is next to impossible, and the environment only serves to make people more ill. Our district attorney believes there's approximately 1,000 offenders with mental illness currently in our jail that really shouldn't be there, except we don't have the community resources, the diversion programming, and the mental health court capacity to do anything else but incarcerate them. There's nowhere else for them to go, and this is a complete travesty. Many of you here tonight may not know what jail diversion is, so I'll just give you a real brief one-sentence definition. It is simply diverting people with serious mental illness who often have co-occurring substance use disorders away from jail and to community-based treatment and support services. 15 years ago, we didn't know how to do jail diversion, and we didn't know how to do mental health courts. But today, we do, which means there's no excuse, and we do know how to do this. It is now a matter of political will to engage and commit the necessary resources to solve this problem. Thank you very much. And I'd like to introduce you a very courageous woman named Deborah Zielinski, who's going to tell you her personal story.
I'm Deborah Zielinski, and I'm 45 years old. Today I have a home in Pacoima. Today I'm not the same person that I was 2 years ago. Back then I was unmedicated, I couldn't keep a home, I couldn't stay sober, and I couldn't stay out of jail. I was mentally gone. I felt like there was a convention in my head and I could not make any of the right choices because I could not think straight. I've struggled for over 30 years. The first time I was arrested, I was 18 years old. I grew up in Northridge and Chatsworth. I would have gone to jail earlier, but my dad knew a lot of police officers and was able to protect me from jail until I was 18. A lot of terrible things happen to people with mental illness in jail. The deputies lash out at you because they want everyone to march to the beat of the same drum, but people with mental health problems can't, and they get beat up and put in isolation. Every time I went to jail, my mental treatment records and medication popped up on the computer, but then I would have to wait a month to see a psychiatrist. I would try to buy medication from people inside. By the time I got out, I would be a basket case because I wasn't medicated correctly. The last time I went to jail, I had 8 warrants, and I knew that I had to do something different and get my mental stability right. This is the longest that I've been out of jail. Once I started seeing a doctor, I got on the right medication and started therapy, which is what I really needed. That's when my transformation started. Once I started getting medicated the right way, I was able to make a decision that I did not want to use drugs anymore. I also know that if I had not gotten an apartment through a community of friends, I would not have been able to stay clean. It gave me the privacy and space to heal. When you go to therapy, you open up a lot of wounds. I needed that safe place to close my door and process my feelings. People need mental health treatment. They won't get the help they need in jail. If you want people to get better, you have to invest in services and housing that will get them better. Thank you.
Good evening, candidates. I'm Molly Reisman, Los Angeles Director for CSH. There's been increasing focus in our county to the issue of people living with serious mental illness being incarcerated and criminalized. The district attorney has clearly stated that the county needs to do a better job at diverting people with mental illness away from jail and into treatment. At our last forum, you both committed to, you both said that you did not believe that investing $2 billion in a jail for people with mental illness was the best solution. So we ask you, what level of resources would you advocate for the county to invest in our jail diversion efforts? And what types of diversion programs do you feel are the most important for the county to invest in?
So Sheila, this is you first.
Well, I think in terms of how much money, some of the money was really to redo the men's jail, and that needs to be done. But I would say at least 25% of it needs to go into services and not into people staying in jail. Because Jackie Lacey is starting to do a very serious and good job about diversion and convincing the courts, which of course are independent, to do diversion instead of sentencing to jail. The county mental health department, in my opinion, has not been really aggressive about its services. It's not just for the jails. It actually has to do with working with community-based organizations, which are going to be the people who are going to be serving the people we're trying to keep out of jail. There needs to be a lot more money, and it's a lot cheaper per person than keeping a person in jail. As a chair of the health committee in the legislature, I found one of the most difficult things was trying to achieve parity between mental health funding and health funding. Notice it's just called health and mental health, as though it's something secondary. I carried 4 bills to put mental health into parity, both in funding and in how it's considered in the statutes, as in terms of seriousness, all of which passed and were signed, but that doesn't solve the problem when you come to the implementation. What we need to do is to make certain there are sufficient community resources for those sentenced under diversion, and make no mistake, this is a sentence, and my time is up, sorry.
Bobby?
I think, as Mr. Gale said, this is a real political will question. I was at the hearing with Mr. Gale where Jackie Lacey presented her ideas, and at the end of the hearing, Zev Yaroslavsky said in public that he thought it was the best hearing on mental health care in the jail that he had heard in 20 years on the board. And I was shocked by that, I have to say, because it was an hour hearing. It was pretty interesting, but it wasn't really, I don't know whether you agree with me, comprehensive and aggressive. Mr. Gale, I think you and I agree. And I've been to the NAMI meetings here in the San Fernando Valley, and I know exactly what you're talking about. This issue, we know how to do this. This is something that has to be done. It's absolutely, I've been to the Men's Central Jail. I hope none of you have, because it is a place that if you went, when you come out, you have to spend a week calming yourself down, because the disrespect to human beings is has been alluded to, but not said as graphically as you see it when you're there. The disrespect to human beings, the absolute impossibility of anybody making progress in that environment. The outcomes are guaranteed to be terrible, whereas the outcomes in community treatment are almost always better. They're much cheaper and the outcomes are better. This needs to be grabbed and done with an urgency that I hope I'll be able to bring to it, because I feel, as you're saying, there are friends and brothers and sisters. Every family has faced these issues, and I can commit to you very, very certainly that I will make better hearings on it at a minimum at the board and take it and do something very quickly about it.
This is a quick answer question. Do either of you would say you either favor or oppose the action taken by the County Board of Supervisors to invest in building the county jail as it was currently devised for $2 billion? Sheila, you first.
I think we both answered the question that we do not favor the use of the money in that way, especially in terms of incarcerating people with mental illness, and not only that, but with substance abuse treatment issues as well. We both want to see them, Bobby will speak for himself, but we both want to see them in community-based services. Some of them will be residential services, because these are sentences made by the court for people who commit crimes. But it is the right way to turn people's lives around.
Bobby?
Very well said.
Okay. Okay. Next question.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Marlene Grossman, and I'm the chair of the leadership board of Move LA. In 2008, 68% of the voters in Los Angeles County voted to pass Measure R, which is now transforming transportation and lives throughout Los Angeles County. What we have done is nothing short of remarkable for Los Angeles. It's so dependent on cars, and here we are having the beginning of a transit system. Since 2008, LA Metro has opened the Expo line to Culver City and has now opened the Orange Line in Chatsworth. But it's not really about giving people opportunities to get out of that traffic. It's much more than that. It's about having an efficient economy, it's about cleaning up our air, and it's about providing good middle-class jobs for thousands of people. And it's really my pleasure now to introduce one of those people who's gotten a job and a real hand up. His name is Rashawn Moore, and he works for LA Metro's Construction Career Program. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rashawn Moore. When I first came home from incarceration, I had to get a plan. I told myself that I needed a career, so I checked myself into Maxine Water Adult School, accepting the change. Upon going to school, I needed to provide for my family, so I started at certain jobs like Labor Ready, Aerotech, temp agencies, but it wasn't enough. They just used me as a body, somebody that was unskilled, no benefits, no pension, no retirement, just a body. I was blessed to be a part of an organization called Shields for Family, that's Jericho, that collaborated with PV Jobs. They gave me an opportunity. They said, hey, Rashawn, would you like to have a career? I said, yes. They introduced me to the boot camp for laborers. I went to laborers boot camp. I graduated. They said, we have a job for you on the Crenshaw line. I was excited. Now I'm a proud member of the local Laborers 300, where I started a career, a lifestyle. I have opportunity to be a part of society and pay taxes and vote, and to actually say that I'm building up my community. I'm actually strengthening everybody that's around me, not just myself. They say half of the people that come home from prison will go back. But what about the other half, like myself and so many other people who need these opportunities? This was a life changer for me. I also believe that if we continue to build this transit, there will be more opportunities to build families back together, to help young and mid-aged people with better careers. And I thank you guys for this opportunity.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Tabor. I'm a former council member and mayor in the city of Inglewood. I'm the executive director of the Los Angeles Southwest College Foundation, but more importantly, I'm the vice chair of Move LA. And I'm very proud to also have been an organizer for Los Angeles LA Boys Pico many years ago. As a county supervisor, you will sit on the Metro Board. You will sit there with the mayor of Los Angeles, with council member Paul Kokorian, and you will replace Supervisor Zev Yaroslavsky, who has been a visionary voice on the Metro Board. The Metro Board is now considering Measure R2, partially with the prodding and support of Move LA. Our question is, do you support, would you support, and do you support Measure R2 or ballot measure to continue to build out the public transportation system in Los Angeles? And if you do, what would you prioritize with those public transit investment dollars?
And the question will go to Bobby, and I'd like to make sure that that ending question is very specific about what those priorities would be for transportation.
I do strongly support Measure R2. I think it's a political question. It has to be allocated in a way that will cause it to pass. That's a very important thing. In particular, the Valley here, where there are a lot of votes, needs to feel it's getting its fair share. As I've gone to so many meetings and teas and coffees and breakfasts in the Valley, I hear over and over and over again, we didn't get our fair share of the original Measure R funding. I'm very sensitive to that, and I'll work hard to make sure that the design of the new Measure R will make sure that the Valley gets its fair share. I have to give a shout out to the Laborers 300 Union, who is supporting me, thank goodness, and to say that the job training functions that this young man described that union does are amazing. I've been up to their facility, and you see in a very vivid way not only the impact in jobs on construction of the subway, but also how it radiates out into the community and other kinds of private sector job creation. I think we underestimate how important it is to our area, which has lost 200,000 jobs in the last 20 years, how important it is to our area to rapidly build the transportation system out to attract other kinds of investment around it, other kinds of business investment. So I would prioritize it in a very significant way to the Orange Line here into the Valley, to the north-south connectors. How great would it be in the Valley to be able to take the subway to the airport? What would that do to the 405? I think, okay.
Sheila.
How great would that be? I think you're right. Well, the interesting thing, I represented this area for 14 years in the legislature, and one of the interesting things you learn is that you really need to fight for the resources to come to your own district, while at the same time you have to think about the whole rest of the state, because your district, people in your district are going to go somewhere on a train or on a freeway, et cetera, and so they need to be able to get from end to end. It's the same way in the county. In this district, and Bobby's correct, we have to have votes from the people in the Valley, and the people in the Valley, I really hope that we will all support R2, because we're going to get our fair share from it. There's already a plan in it to do the, not necessarily all the subway, but light rail subway and then light rail from the Valley to the airport and the Orange Line. But in addition, people from the Valley really want to go somewhere else in the county. Maybe you want to work downtown. Maybe you want to go see Dudamel conduct. That's a very important thing. What I would prioritize is not only these two issues for our district, but also the 3 lines that are going to end up going to the airport need to all come together somewhere at the airport so that we can get off the train, check in, check our luggage, get on a people mover, and go to the terminal. That would be a high priority for me. We need to move people around. The other priority, first mile, last mile. You need to get to those trains easily, get to where you're going, and I would prioritize that.
Okay. Now it's my turn.
Oh boy.
For more of a conversation, I have a couple of questions for you. You guys are running for a very strange office. There's really nothing like it in the country. 10 million people, largest county in the United States, 5 supervisors, nicknamed the kings and queens, at least in part because nobody knows what they do and nobody knows how to hold them accountable if they don't do it right. So you should enjoy all of us having a good chance to ask you to commit to things right now. History shows there's not much we can do about it if you don't do these things. So I wanted to raise a few questions for you, which is, how do we hold you accountable for your actions? And I'll give you an example I'd like you both to react to. If you add up the sum total of everything that everybody's agreed to tonight, it could possibly be larger than 100% of the budget. And if that were to occur, you have two alternatives. I'd call it the easy one and the hard one. The easy one is what every supervisor does and says, I couldn't get those other creeps to vote with it, but I'm fighting like a dog for that money. But what if you sincerely believe there's not enough money? Is there any circumstance where you would come back and face the same people tonight and say, I can do this, but not that, and here's why? Sheila?
Well, it's one of the reasons why, when I was talking about the money for the jail, I indicated that some of it was going to have to be committed to redoing the jail, not just 100% for mental health services. Or in terms of the boomerang money that's coming back, it may not 100% be able to go for affordable housing. You have to look at what you have and realistically spend it. But I do think that the issue of a budget of $26 billion has a lot of opportunity in it for areas that haven't yet been spent, in the areas for poor people, in the areas of health and clinics, in combining the work that the city of Los Angeles does and other cities. There's a lot of lack of cooperation, and that kind of cooperation can actually save money, combine services, certainly combine entries to services in a way that I think is important. County is also very siloed. Mental health and health, they fight about who's going to have what instead of the ability to share and therefore save money. That's why Mitch Katz's such a hero, using the money in new ways.
Let me keep it going. Bobby, your comment on this.
I would say that leadership is a very important factor here. I think if you come into an organization as a person saying, I want change, and you insist on it, and you've known how in your career to manage change, people respond to that. My experience has been, I know in Santa Monica, in the homelessness policy of the county, of the city, excuse me, when I got elected, because I got elected by a very large majority, people in the staff knew there was going to be a change. And the young people in particular in the staff came forward to me, maybe not always in the meeting, but maybe after the meeting, and said, hey, if you really want to do that housing first thing, here's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to take this step, and this step. And that worked out. I have found that motivating people, and I think this will go to your later question maybe about governance, is how do you get a great staff, not your personal staff, or how do you get a staff that already exists? It's a big bureaucracy, the county. It's 103,000 employees. Think about that. That's an enormous group of people. Somewhere in there, there's some smart people who want to do new things. I feel I'm going to be able to find them, empower them, motivate them, and follow them in a way. I want to partner with those people to do good things.
Well, with all due respect to two people I admire very much, you didn't answer my question, either one of you, which is, what if you have genuinely bad news to deliver? You know, the new book could be When Bad Things Happen to Good People in Budgets. When there's not enough money, how will you say, not I can do it this way, we can find waste, fraud, and abuse here? What about when you run out of those and you have to look good people in the eye and say, not because I couldn't get somebody else's support on the board, I fought like a dog, but I actually read the budget and there's not enough money for it. Are you willing to do that? I haven't heard that from either of you yet.
Well, can I take a shot at that? I think, that's the essential thing in life, to really be straight with people. I think that's what your question. Do you have any record or experience of being straight with people or saying no to your friends? Some people come in and you really like them and you work with them and you've promised them, and they come in and they say, I need to have this, and you have to say, I'm sorry. I tried and I can't get it, or I'm going to try for it next year, or really I'm not going to do it. I think I have been able to do that. I did it in this race, for example. The Chamber of Commerce has supported, has endorsed me, and I've opposed them on the minimum wage rise. So I think you have to be willing to accept relationships where you can't agree on everything, You have to be tough and ask the tough questions. And the way you hold me accountable is invite me back to this meeting in a year. And I will come, because I like this. You know, I want someone to stand up here and say, Bobby, you said this was going to happen last year and you didn't do it. Why? I grew up in a big family. That happened every night. So I'm used to it, and I like it. And I think it's a very important process that people actually feel they can engage with you in a real way. You're not the supervisor. You're like a person. And people can come to you and say, you haven't done this, and you promised. And I'll say, great, you know, you're right, I screwed up. What's your idea? Bring me a solution. Find me some money elsewhere. They're timing us now. He just told me I had 30 seconds.
They weren't timing you, they were timing me.
Oh,
is that correct?
Sorry.
Okay. Well, thanks. I got to say what I want to say, but Sheila, you didn't get a chance to. Sheila gets a chance to say that too, to respond to that too. So go ahead, Sheila. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to take a risk here. My opponent has criticized me because I was in the legislature at a time when we cut the budget to ribbons, and therefore accused me of being complicit in a budget that went into deficit. And I think, realistically speaking, I want to say that when the budget in California, in terms of its resources, because of the recession, plummeted almost 50% in 3 years. 50% of the budget every year goes for social services, 30% for health care for poor people. We had to look people in the eye, and this was the very community that we are representing here tonight, and say, I'm really sorry. And in some places, I didn't want to do it, and I didn't do it. We had a family of 4 that was getting $400 a month. I refused to vote to cut that $360 a month. Okay, I'm sorry, but people's lives were at stake. That is a time when you must also say sometimes no to your colleagues and stand up for what is right. You just have to do it. And we came back. You know we came back. If Arnold hadn't cut the tax that we were paying since 1941 on our cars, we would have been fine, actually. That was $6 billion a year. So, you know, some of the truth has to be told. And the truth, the rest of it, I have to say, Rafe, you can't really hold people you elect responsible. You have to trust them from the outset. You have to look at their record. Have they kept their word? Have they done what they said? Have they had integrity? Have they come through for you? Have they met with you and listened and tried to do their best? That's the only way you can keep them accountable, because they are kings and queens. So you better elect somebody that already knows how to do it.
I'm going to take my prerogative to give Bobby a few seconds because he was mentioned in Sheila's answer. So, Bobby, you get a few seconds to comment on that.
The criticism that I made of your budget committee goes to the question of having a rainy day fund, which is, by the way, now on the ballot. The governor has put on the ballot a provision that, if passed, will force the budget committee to produce a rainy day fund. If you're on the budget committee, whatever the truth is you should have a rainy day fund if you manage a budget. That's my criticism, and that's not open to truth or falsity. It's just a thing that people do who manage budgets. I've managed many. I always have a rainy day fund, a contingency, whatever it's called. We had that in Santa Monica. We didn't, in the Great Recession, we didn't cut a job. We kept our AAA credit rating. We created jobs, and the city did pretty well. We had to make some cuts, but they weren't of any employees. So I think when you manage a budget, you have to have a financial discipline about the way you set the budget up in good times, so that you don't blame the recession came, sorry. You were ready for the recession. That's part of your responsibility, to be ready for the recession. And if you don't make plans for that, you have a problem.
Well, that was nice. We had a little back and forth, which is good, healthy. I think we've probably gone over a bit of our time, but they gave me a little bit of flexibility here. First of all, before we finish, I want to thank all of the people who participated as questioners. Would you all stand up, please? Would everybody stand up? And thank you all for the flavor that you lent to this evening. It really made a tremendous difference. Very unusual get-together, and to all the organizers who put this together. And of course to our two candidates, and for everything you've done this whole campaign. It's been great to watch you both throughout this whole campaign. And I think we're turning it over to another speaker for closing comments. Is that correct? Oh, before we do that, I am so sorry. I disobeyed the rules. The candidates have their closing statements of 90 seconds each. May I correct that to 3 minutes each? And by the toss of a coin, the first closing statement is from Bobby and the second is from Sheila.
Thank you, Rafe, and thank you, Sheila. I want to, just as a point of personal privilege, commend Sheila and her team who are sitting here. We've been at 25 of these debates. We've been at many other events where we weren't formally debating, and this has been going on since January. I don't think it's possible to say how deeply we're, in a certain level, intertwined with each other in doing these debates and discussing these issues. We have a few fights, but you know, I think we've had a really progressive, really smart series of conversations, and we've done, as Rafe, you said at the beginning, we've done what makes America great, which is we have gone to the people and asked for your votes. We have done this all over the Valley, all over the West Side, in newspaper rooms, and we've done it together. We did it with our colleagues Pam Ulick and John Duran in the primary, and this is just a fantastic thing. Many of our forefathers have died for us to have the privilege to do this. Many countries in the world, as we read in the newspaper every day, don't get to do this. They start shooting each other. This is America. I grew up in this, and although you know I came from a famous family that ran for high offices, when we were little kids, we all came to meetings just like this. We handed out little flyers. We asked people would they put a bumper sticker on their car. We went to debates. We met candidates. It's just exciting for me to have shared this with you, Sheila, and your team, and to have watched these kinds of conversations in my hometown here where I met my wife, have my girls in school, and I'm living my life. So I want to say blessings on everybody for coming here. It's our last night together. I think if I summarize my distinctions, I came from local government. I like going to meetings like this. I think what I learned in local government was that you get a lot of smart ideas from people in meetings like this. I don't think that the Sacramento training of making policy on a broader level is as good as being in rooms like this and listening to people. Most of the smart ideas I heard were not mine, they came from other people. I think that's an important idea. Second idea that I think is very important is that Zev has held the line on the budget. He's a good financial manager. He's been in that position for a long time. The county is in decent financial shape, although it has significant unfunded pension liabilities and very significant unfunded retiree health care liabilities. I look forward to being able to continue that role that Zev set out of an honest broker of the finances, of being able to say no to my friends, of looking people in the eye and saying, you know, we don't have these, the money in the budget to do this. I would like to do it, but I can't. And talking to my two perhaps Republican colleagues and my other two colleagues and being in the middle on that. It's a nonpartisan board, but I do think to have someone who's had a financial background of managing finances is very important. And thirdly, I would say that I have a reform agenda. I have the energy, I hope, of an entrepreneurial person. I've worked in the private sector, and I think that will be helpful to the county as the big transition happens and we go forward together. So I ask you for your vote tonight. Thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you afterwards. Thank you. Thank you.
Sheila.
Well, it has been fun, although I have to say I'm not sorry it's the last debate. But I want to praise my opponent as well. He has been such an intelligent voice in this debate and in many debates, and has spent his life in many ways in public service, as have I. We chose different paths, but it's, you know, could have just done nothing, you know, and he didn't, and he did it very well. For me, I have to say it's been an interesting trip for me. I grew up in LA by the Coliseum, working class family. I was an actor as a kid. I didn't actually know there were other people in the world. Then I went to UCLA, and there seemed to be a lot of that going on here tonight, of which I'm very happy. And counseled at a camp called Unicamp, later went to Vietnam with the USO, went to Birmingham in 1963, and over the course of my young life, became quite aware that there were other people in the world and that they were not in any way as lucky as I was. We didn't have much money, but we were not going through so many of the issues that we've heard about tonight. And I don't know why, maybe because my parents were FDR lovers. I just grew up feeling it's a privilege to do something about these things. I can't stand when something's going on and I want to do something about it. I've been accused of having a savior complex. I'm sure it's not that bad, but if that's the case, I'm going to live with it, because I can't tell you how excited I am, if I'm elected, to be working on the very issues we've talked about tonight. I have spent my life in public service. I've spent my life as the chair of homeless organizations, as the chair of Shelter for Battered Women, started a law center on women's issues, worked against discrimination, and I just have learned so much. Then you're termed out. I don't know whether you've ever lost a job or been fired. I'm sure if I asked you to raise your hands, it might be 50% of us. But when you're termed out, you still know and want to use so much that you've learned. The county is really not like a local government, I have to say. 10 million people. It's like 5 people running the state of Ohio. And all of the same issues that we have in our states are what counties deal with. Healthcare, mental health, public health, transportation, environmental protection, juvenile justice, foster kids, the arts, and so much more. Homelessness, housing, incarceration. I want to continue working on those issues. I feel like I'm just getting started. And I thank you so much for caring and so much for being here. It's an aspect of faith on your part. Just like Bobby said. When you vote and you use those I hope they don't replace the punches, because when I do it, I always say, I hope this idiot's going to do something. So thanks for your act of faith.
Not quite yet. A couple more speakers. Just a little goodbye, closing. We don't have to say anymore, no. We can do that. Yes, I know. This is very worrisome.
Thank you. Good evening, candidates. My name is David Polinsky. I'm a member of Valley Beth Shalom Synagogue and am co-chair of the VBS Homelessness Task Force Advocacy Group. Bobby, I'd like to summarize the key points you made this evening. On the issue of food insecurity, you stated that you would do whatever is necessary to improve the situation of people who have trouble gaining access to food. You would prioritize this issue with lobbyists in DC and Sacramento. You believe that the best way to get information on the subject is through the nonprofits and the activists. As supervisor, you will stay in touch with the people who are directly affected by food insecurity. On the issue of health care, you stated that the most important question is how to make the new system work. You committed to work towards creative and innovative solutions. You recognize the need to get the Tarzana Clinic open and functioning. You've had a successful record with bipartisan cooperation and will continue those efforts. On the issue of affordable housing, you stated that you would commit 100% of the Boomerang funds to affordable housing. You would coordinate county efforts with local city efforts. You would work toward developing innovative financing plans. And you would champion a program of creating housing on a county-wide basis. On the issue of re-entry of the incarcerated, you advocate community health services rather than jailing. You recognize the benefits of discharge planning, and you would partner with the faith-based organizations to achieve these goals. On the issue of homelessness, you have worked on this issue for 10 years regarding the suit against the VA. You believe that the county should hire a lobbyist on veteran homeless issues. You would work with the California legislative delegation to secure additional funding. You support partnership with nonprofits and the VA, and will work closely with Mayor Garcetti. On the issue of mental health and jail diversion, you acknowledge that this is a political will question. You did not favor the county board decision to build out the jail, and you believe that the outcomes of community treatment are better and cheaper than incarceration. On the issue of transit development, you strongly support Measure R2. You believe that the funds have to be allocated to ensure that the measure passes, and the Valley should get its fair share. You feel that it is critical that the system be rapidly built out to attract business investment opportunities. Bobby, do you commit to being held accountable to these statements, those that you've made here tonight on these issues? And if elected, will you agree to meet with the coalition leadership within the next 3 months to discuss these issues?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, candidates. My name is Liam Moriarty, and I'm a volunteer with the Corporation for Supportive Housing. Sheila, on food insecurity, you said that you would appoint a special deputy devoted to food policy, incentivize local food resources like farmers markets and community gardens, and lobby Sacramento and Washington, D.C. to restore funding to programs like food stamps. On healthcare, you said that you would work with the other supervisors to secure increased funding to the LA County clinic system. On boomerang funding and affordable housing, you said that you would work to develop a unified approach for applying the boomerang funding across LA County and commit to using the majority of those funds on developing affordable housing. On re-entry of the incarcerated and Prop 47, you said that you are committed to expanding the funding and support to local community and faith-based organizations specializing in adult and youth re-entry services. On homelessness, you said that you would work to develop an accountable LA County Department of Veteran Services for the centralization of services, increase permanent supportive housing programs for all homeless in LA County, and invest in rapid rehousing for people who are homeless due to economic reasons. On mental health and jail diversion, you said that you would dedicate 25% of the $2 billion committed to the building of the new county jail to jail diversion community and residential services. On transit development, you said that you would work within the 3rd District to develop support for an airport line, but would prioritize having the 3 lines already planned meet at the airport, as well as support first mile, last mile infrastructure around transit stops. Finally, Sheila, do you commit to being held accountable for the statements that you have made here tonight on these issues, and, if elected, to agree to meet with the coalition leadership within the next 3 months to discuss these issues?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Let me just summarize a little bit about what we heard tonight. We heard amazing stories from people who came from all the way across the other side of the city to people who are just right here to talk about what it's affecting them and how these 2 candidates can help improve their lives. We've heard from community advocates who have dedicated their lives to serving others. And we've heard a Baptist minister out-Jew a rabbi on quoting texts from Jewish tradition. So that's in itself quite amazing. At our registration tonight, we marked that there were somewhere between 430 and 450 people here tonight. That is amazing. And including all of these issues, we've built relationships. Over the course of planning this project, we've built relationships trying to unite this city, this county together, showing that we share a moral future. And so let's end with a prayer. Misher Berach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Bivka Rechav Aleah. O God of the ancients, mothers and fathers, author of liberty, keep these candidates' hearts open to the golden prophetic dreams that called them into civil leadership. Give them the strength to face the iron-hard realities by the city by the sea. Give blessings to those who have come into this space to engage in the public discourse that makes America the envy of the world. And when we go home to our families after a long day in the field, and in that quiet time when we lay our heads exhausted on our pillow at night, may you, God, give your dreams to us. of a beloved community and a city filled with angels. And when we awaken refreshed and filled with vision, may we endeavor to spend our days making those dreams into realities, so that when we lay our heads exhausted on our pillow at night, may you, God, give us your dreams of a beloved community and a city filled with angels. And together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Dr. Raphael Sunshine, to Sheila Kuehl, and Bobby Shriver. Have a good night.